My name is Isabella Young, and I'm 32 years old. 8 months ago, my parents sent me a text that shattered my world. Don't come to dinner tonight. Your brother's girlfriend doesn't feel comfortable around you. That text wasn't just about one dinner. It was the beginning of my systematic exclusion from my own family. For months, I watched as they chose a stranger over their own daughter, canceled my birthday celebration, and even suggested I wasn't family-oriented enough to be included in their will. But what they didn't know was that 5 years ago, they signed a document that would come back to haunt them. At my promotion party last week, when they publicly humiliated me in front of 30 guests, I finally revealed what that document said. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This is my story. It was a Thursday evening in March when everything changed. I was in my kitchen, carefully wrapping the homemade tiramisu I'd spent 3 hours perfecting, Mom's favorite dessert. My phone buzzed with a message from her. Isabella, please don't come tonight. Melissa feels you judge her, and we want to keep peace in the family. We'll catch up another time. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding. Melissa. My brother Marcus's girlfriend of exactly 2 months. A woman I'd met precisely twice, both times making every effort to welcome her into our family. The first time we met, she'd shown up to Sunday brunch in a designer dress that cost more than most people's rent, immediately launching into stories about her influence on social media. I'd smiled, asked about her interests, even followed her Instagram account with its 3,000 followers and endless selfies. The second time, at Marcus's birthday, she'd spent the entire evening clinging to my parents, calling my father Dad, and my mother the mom she always dreamed of. I called Mom immediately. What do you mean Melissa doesn't feel comfortable? What did I do? Honey, she says you look at her funny, that you make her feel unwelcome with your success talk. My success talk? Mom, she asked about my job. I answered. Well, maybe tone it down. Not everyone has your advantages. Advantages? I wanted to laugh. While Marcus had dropped out of 3 colleges on my parents' dime, I'd worked 2 jobs to put myself through architecture school. While he lived rent-free in their guest house at 28, I'd been independent since 22. Mom, this is a family dinner. I'm family. Melissa is going to be family too, Isabella. Marcus is serious about her. 2 months. They'd known each other 2 months, and suddenly she had veto power over my presence at the dinner table where I'd eaten thousands of meals. I set down the tiramisu, its chocolate dusting now seeming pointless. Through my kitchen window, I could see the city lights starting to twinkle. Somewhere across town, my family would be gathering without me, laughing at stories I wouldn't hear, making memories I wouldn't share. Fine, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Enjoy your dinner. As I hung up, I didn't know this was just the beginning. That over the next 8 months, Melissa doesn't feel comfortable would become the reason I'd miss Easter, the 4th of July, even my own birthday dinner. But this was just the beginning of something much bigger than any of us realized. To understand how Melissa gained so much power so quickly, you need to understand my family dynamic. Growing up, I was the daughter who was supposed to follow in my parents' footsteps. Dad was a respected cardiologist, Mom a head nurse at the same hospital. From age 5, they'd introduce me as our future doctor. But I loved buildings, not bodies. I wanted to create spaces where people lived, not operating rooms where they might die. When I chose architecture over medicine, you'd have thought I'd chosen prison over paradise. Such a waste of your intelligence, Dad would say at every family gathering, even as I graduated summa cum laude. Meanwhile, Marcus could do no wrong. When he dropped out of pre-med, Dad called it finding himself. When he failed business school, Mom said he was too creative for traditional education. When he moved back home at 26 with no job and no plans, they renovated the guest house just for him. While Marcus slept until noon and played video games, I quietly built my career from scratch. Internships that paid nothing. Entry-level positions where I was the only woman in the room. 70-hour weeks that no one in my family asked about because architecture wasn't real medicine. By 31, I'd become the youngest senior designer at my firm. My parents' response? That's nice, dear. Did you hear Marcus got an interview at that pharmaceutical company? The interview he never showed up for. I loved my brother, but the inequality was exhausting. Every achievement of mine was met with polite disinterest. Every failure of his was met with excuses and financial support. When I bought my condo with my own money, they gave Marcus a BMW for motivation. So when Melissa appeared and immediately started praising their parenting, calling them inspirational and the perfect family, they didn't just welcome her, they worshipped her. Melissa Carter entered our lives like a perfectly calibrated missile. Marcus met her at a networking event he'd actually attended, Miracle Number 1. Within a week, she was at family dinner, batting her eyelashes at my father and helping my mother in the kitchen. "She's everything we hoped for, Marcus," Mom gushed after that first dinner. "So family-oriented, unlike some people who prioritize their careers." The jab wasn't subtle. Melissa knew exactly which buttons to push. She called my dad the father she never had, after knowing him for 3 weeks. She posted photos with my mom on Instagram, #blessed, #family goals. She even started a tradition of bringing flowers every Sunday, the same Sundays I was suddenly accidentally not informed about. What fascinated me was her surgical precision. She never attacked me directly. Instead, she'd say things like, "Isabella's so lucky to be so independent. I could never be away from family that much." Or my personal favorite, "It must be nice to only worry about buildings instead of real relationships." My parents ate it up. Within a month, Melissa had her own key to my parents' house. Within 2 months, she was helping Mom redecorate, removing family photos that included me from the main rooms, replacing them with pictures of her and Marcus. "We need to make her feel included," Mom explained when I asked about my missing graduation photo. I started keeping a mental list of red flags. The way Melissa knew my parents' net worth within weeks, how she suddenly developed an interest in their investment properties, the way she'd steer every conversation toward inheritance and family legacy. But pointing any of this out made me the villain. The exclusions started small, almost reasonable. "Oh, Isabella, we moved dinner to 5 p.m., but you're probably working anyway." Then they grew. "We're keeping Easter small this year, just Marcus and Melissa." Here's a list of events I was uninvited from in 8 months. Easter dinner, Mother's Day brunch, 3 Sunday dinners, the 4th of July barbecue, Dad's retirement party planning, Mom's birthday celebration, the family Labor Day trip. The excuses evolved too. First, it was Melissa's anxiety, then keeping the peace. Finally, they stopped giving reasons altogether. The birthday incident broke something in me. My 32nd birthday fell on a Saturday. Mom had promised weeks before, just family, my favorite restaurant. The morning of, I got a text. "Melissa made surprise plans for Marcus today. Rain check?" My birthday, rain check. I spent that evening with friends who actually wanted my company, but the sting remained. When I posted photos from my celebration, Melissa commented, "So glad you found your people." The subtext was clear: your people aren't your family anymore. Then I noticed something disturbing. Every achievement I posted on social media was followed by family drama within 24 hours. Got promoted to senior designer? Suddenly, Melissa was hurt by an imaginary slight. Won a prestigious project? Marcus needed emergency family support for his latest crisis. It wasn't coincidence. Melissa was monitoring my social media, strategically creating conflicts to overshadow my successes. She wanted me invisible, and she was succeeding. My parents didn't see the pattern, or maybe they didn't want to. The financial manipulation started subtly. "Marcus and Melissa need help with their apartment deposit," Mom mentioned casually during one of our rare phone calls. $20,000 of help, I later learned. Then came the car. "Melissa's having transmission problems," Dad explained, as if buying her a new Audi was the only solution. The girl who'd been dating my brother for 4 months got a $60,000 car. When I'd needed $3,000 for architecture software during school, I'd been told to figure it out yourself. It builds character. But the real alarm bells started when Mom mentioned they were updating their will to reflect current relationships. "Current relationships?" I asked, my stomach dropping. "Well, Melissa will be family soon. We want to make sure she's taken care of." "Mom, they're not even engaged." "Isabella, don't be selfish. Family isn't just about blood." Funny how that philosophy never applied when I needed support. I started paying attention to the financial patterns. Joint bank accounts appeared. Melissa suddenly had access to my parents' investment advisor. Marcus, who'd never shown interest in family finances, was now attending meetings about their real estate portfolio, with Melissa taking notes. During a brief lunch with Mom, one where Melissa was conveniently busy, she let slip that they were considering transferring the lake house to Marcus for tax reasons. The lake house where I'd spent every summer, where I'd sketched my first architectural drawings on the dock. What about equal distribution? I asked carefully. Mom waved her hand dismissively. You have your career. Marcus needs more support. I wanted to scream. My career, the one they'd never celebrated, was now being used as justification to cut me out of my inheritance. Meanwhile, Marcus and Melissa were being handed everything. 5 years ago, my parents had met with their estate lawyer, James Mitchell, to set up their will. I'd been there, all of us had. We'd signed documents about fair treatment and equal distribution. Did they even remember? Or had Melissa's manipulation made them forget their own promises? I made a mental note to find my copy of those papers. Something told me I might need them. The text from Dad that evening confirmed my fears. Family meeting tomorrow about estate planning. You don't need to come, we know you're busy with work. I wasn't busy, but I was definitely no longer considered family enough to be included in family financial decisions. While my family erased me from their personal life, my professional life was soaring. 3 months into the Melissa era, I'd been promoted to senior designer. 6 months in, I was leading the redesign of the city's new cultural center, a $40 million project that would define my career. The promotion to design director was almost guaranteed. My boss, Richard, had been grooming me for it for 2 years. Isabella, you're the future of this firm, he'd said during my last review. The announcement would happen at a formal celebration, the kind of event where having supportive family matters. That's when Melissa started infiltrating my professional world. It started innocently. She'd found my company on LinkedIn, followed all my colleagues. Then she started commenting on articles about our projects. So interesting. Marcus's family is so accomplished. Marcus's family, not mine. The real shock came when my colleague Janet mentioned, your brother's girlfriend is quite interested in architecture. She reached out about potential collaborations for her influencer content. Collaborations? Melissa had 3,000 followers and zero connection to design, but she was positioning herself as adjacent to my success, trying to leverage my professional reputation for her own gain. Then she crossed a line. 2 weeks before my promotion announcement, she messaged Richard directly. As someone close to Isabella's family, she wrote, I wanted to share some concerns about her work-life balance and how it affects those who love her. Richard, thankfully, forwarded it to me immediately. I assume this is complicated, he asked. She's my brother's girlfriend who's trying to sabotage me, I said simply. Consider it deleted, he replied. And Isabella? Maybe don't invite her to the promotion party. But I would invite them all, my parents, Marcus, and yes, even Melissa, because this promotion party wouldn't just celebrate my success, it would be the stage where I finally set things right. I scheduled it for the following Friday at the Sterling Room, the city's most elegant venue. 30 guests from my professional world, and 4 from my personal life who had no idea what was coming. My assistant helped with invitations. The one to my parents read, Please join me in celebrating a major milestone. Your presence would mean everything. They RSVP'd yes, adding, Melissa will be joining us. Hope that's okay? It was more than okay. It was perfect. The promotion party would change everything. They just didn't know it yet. If you've ever felt excluded by your own family, you're not alone. This story is about to take a turn that nobody saw coming. Before we continue, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Have you ever dealt with a toxic family dynamic? Your stories help others know they're not alone. I read every single comment, and your support means the world to me. Now let's get to the promotion party where everything unraveled. Trust me, what happens next will leave you speechless. The morning of my promotion party, I stood in my office looking at the nameplate that would soon read, Design Director. 32 years old, youngest in the firm's history to reach this level. The achievement should have filled me with pure joy. Instead, I felt the familiar ache of wondering if my parents would finally be proud. Richard stopped by. Big night, Isabella. The whole board's coming. My family, too, I said, trying to sound casual. That's wonderful. They must be so proud. I smiled instead of answering. The Sterling Room looked magnificent. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Soft jazz playing, champagne flowing. I'd chosen every detail carefully. Elegant, but not ostentatious, professional but warm. The kind of event that said success without screaming it. Colleagues arrived first. Janet, my mentor, David from the Cultural Center project, the senior partners who'd approved my promotion. Each congratulation felt genuine, earned. Then I got the text from Mom. Running late, Melissa needed to stop somewhere. Of course she did. They arrived 40 minutes late, missing the cocktail hour entirely. I watched them enter through the reflection in the window. Dad in his golf casual clothes, he hadn't bothered to dress up. Mom clutching Melissa's arm like she was the guest of honor. Marcus trailing behind, already on his phone. And Melissa, she wore white. A flowing white dress that practically glowed under the venue lights. At my promotion party, she dressed like a bride. Isabella, Mom called out too loudly. Sorry we're late. Melissa wanted to look perfect for your little work thing. Little. Work. Thing. I walked over, smile fixed in place. Welcome. Let me introduce you to some people. Oh, we're fine here, Melissa said, already scanning the room. This is nice. Smaller than I expected. It was a party for 30 distinguished professionals, not a nightclub. But I didn't take the bait. Yes, intimate gatherings are more meaningful, I replied. The speech starts in 10 minutes. Speech? Marcus looked up from his phone. You're giving a speech at your own party? It's customary when receiving a major promotion, Richard said, appearing beside me. Isabella's achievement deserves recognition. My family exchanged glances I pretended not to see. The contrast was painful to watch. On one side of the room, my colleagues mingled, discussing projects and congratulating me. On the other, my family had claimed a corner table, isolated and clearly uninterested. Melissa held court, loud enough for others to hear. I could never work in an office, she announced. It's so limiting for creative souls. Mom nodded along. Melissa's an influencer, she explained to a passing waiter. Very successful. I caught Janet's eye. She'd Googled Melissa earlier. We both knew her influence extended to sponsored posts for teeth whitening kits that paid maybe $50 each. Isabella, David called out, tell everyone about the Cultural Center design. The board's calling it revolutionary. Before I could respond, Melissa laughed. Revolutionary? It's a building. Let's not get carried away. The room quieted slightly. David, bless him, simply turned his back on her and continued talking to me. As I circulated, I noticed Melissa taking photos, not of the celebration, but selfies with the venue as backdrop. She was already crafting her narrative. Look where I am, look how important. Marcus hadn't looked up from his phone once. Dad was checking his watch. Only Mom made an effort, though even she seemed more interested in whatever Melissa was saying than in her daughter's achievement. 5 minutes until the toast, Richard announced. I excused myself to touch up my lipstick, needing a moment to center myself. In the bathroom mirror, I saw what my colleagues saw, a successful woman at the pinnacle of her career. What my family saw, I couldn't fathom anymore. When I returned, Melissa was standing, phone positioned on the table, camera facing the podium area. What are you doing? I asked. Recording for my followers, she said breezily. They love behind-the-scenes content. My promotion. Her content. Actually, I said calmly, I'd prefer no recording during the speech. She rolled her eyes. God, Isabella, not everything's about you. At my own promotion party, the irony was almost funny. Places everyone, Richard called. Let's celebrate our newest design director. As I walked to the podium, I caught sight of someone I hadn't expected. James Mitchell, my parents' estate lawyer, taking a seat near the back. Interesting timing. James Mitchell sat at a back table, briefcase beside his chair, looking like any other professional guest. My parents didn't notice him. Why would they? They'd met him exactly twice, 5 years ago for the will, and once for a revision. They certainly wouldn't recognize him in a room full of strangers. Who's that? Janet whispered, following my gaze. An old family friend, I said carefully. He's been a mentor in some personal matters. It wasn't a lie. After discovering my parents' plans to restructure their will, I'd reached out to James privately. Not as their lawyer, that would be unethical, but as someone who could clarify what documents had been signed years ago. Interesting briefcase for a party, Janet observed. James is very traditional. What Janet didn't know was that briefcase contained copies of documents my parents had forgotten existed, documents with their signatures, documents with very specific clauses about equal treatment and family assets. I'd invited James as my guest, perfectly legal and appropriate. If he happened to have relevant paperwork with him, well, that was just fortunate timing. Melissa's voice carried across the room. Is that the speech area? It's so small. When I did my brand launch, we had a proper stage. Her brand launch, in her apartment, with 12 people. Marcus had complained about it for weeks. 2 minutes, Richard announced. I watched James discreetly check his watch, then his phone. He was ready. The question was whether I'd need him. That would depend entirely on how my family behaved in the next few minutes. Richard clinked his glass, and the room settled into expectant silence. Before Isabella speaks, I want to say something. In 15 years with this firm, I've rarely seen such talent combined with integrity. Isabella Young represents the future of architectural design. Applause filled the room. I glanced at my family's table. Dad was texting. Marcus stared at the ceiling. Mom clapped politely. Melissa wasn't even pretending to pay attention. She was adjusting her phone's angle, making sure she'd be in the background of any footage. Thank you, Richard, I began, moving to the informal podium area. This promotion means more than a title change. It represents years of— Can you speak up? Melissa called out. Some of us can't hear. She was 10 feet away. Of course, I continued smoothly. This represents years of dedication to creating spaces where people can thrive. Architecture isn't just about buildings, it's about understanding human needs and responding with empathy and innovation. I saw several colleagues nodding. My parents, however, were having a whispered conversation with Melissa. The Cultural Center project taught me that success comes from collaboration, from valuing every voice in the room, and from maintaining integrity even when faced with challenges. Melissa stood up, holding her wineglass, and started walking toward the bathroom, directly through my line of sight. Oh, sorry, she said loudly, not sounding sorry at all. Don't mind me. Continue your speech. I watched her weave between tables, taking the longest possible route. Several colleagues frowned at the disruption. As I was saying, I continued, voice steady, integrity matters in everything we do, in our designs, in our relationships, in how we treat people. Melissa had reached the bathroom door but hadn't gone in. She was standing there, wineglass in hand, watching me with a small smile. She was planning something. I want to thank everyone who made this possible, I continued, refusing to let Melissa's hovering derail me. My colleagues who pushed me to excel, Richard, who saw potential in a young architect with big dreams, and— Melissa started walking back, this time directly toward me. The wine in her glass sloshed dangerously. And my family, I said, watching her approach in my peripheral vision. Who taught me that success is earned, not given. Mom actually smiled at that, missing the subtext entirely. Melissa was 5 feet away now, her path unnecessarily close to where I stood. 4 feet? 3? Most importantly, I said, taking a small step backward, I've learned that true success comes from standing firm in your values even when— Melissa tripped. It was theatrical, almost slow motion. Her ankle turned, her arms flailed, and her wineglass flew forward in a perfect arc toward my cream-colored dress. Except I'd stepped back. The wine splashed onto the floor where I'd been standing. Melissa stumbled forward, expecting to collide with me, and instead found empty air. She caught herself awkwardly on a chair, wineglass shattering on the marble floor. The room went silent. Oh my God, Melissa gasped, straightening up. Isabella, why did you move? You made me fall. Every eye in the room turned to us. Several people had their phones out. They'd captured the whole thing. Are you hurt? I asked calmly, not moving to help her. You pushed me, she declared, voice rising. I saw you push me. Isabella was 3 feet away, Janet said flatly. We all saw it. That's when Melissa made her move. She pushed me, Melissa insisted, her voice climbing to performance pitch. I was just walking by and Isabella shoved me. Look, I'm bleeding. She held up her hand, a tiny scratch from the broken glass, barely visible. Melissa, stop, I said quietly. Everyone saw what happened. You've always hated me. She was in full victim mode now, tears appearing on cue. From day one, you've tried to exclude me, to make me feel unwelcome. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Marcus finally looked up from his phone. Jesus, Isabella, what did you do? She didn't do anything, David said firmly. The young lady tripped on her own. Don't defend her! Marcus stood, moving to Melissa's side. My girlfriend is hurt and embarrassed because Isabella can't stand not being the center of attention. Marcus, I said, still calm. Melissa walked directly at me with a full wine glass. There are 30 witnesses. Witnesses to your jealousy. Mom had stood now too. Isabella, this is your promotion party. Why would you create drama? I almost laughed. I'm creating drama? I was giving a speech. You were showing off, Dad interjected, his first words all evening. As usual. And when Melissa accidentally got in your way, you humiliated her. The room was dead silent. My professional colleagues were witnessing my family defend someone who'd obviously tried to sabotage my moment. She's bleeding. Mom rushed to Melissa with napkins. We need to leave. This is too stressful for her. No, Melissa said, chin lifting. I deserve an apology. In front of everyone. And there it was. The real goal. Public humiliation at my professional peak. Apologize, Isabella, Dad commanded. Now. Every colleague was watching. Richard looked ready to intervene. James Mitchell had quietly stood up, hand on his briefcase. Apologize? I repeated, looking at my father. For what, exactly? For pushing Melissa, Marcus shouted. For being a jealous, bitter... Marcus, Richard's voice cut through the room like a blade. You're speaking to our design director. Show some respect. Respect? Marcus laughed bitterly. She doesn't deserve respect. She's always been like this. Cold, superior, thinking she's better than everyone. Because she has a job? Janet asked dryly. The burn was so subtle it took Marcus a moment to process it. Several colleagues hid smiles. Isabella has always been difficult, Mom announced to the room, as if explaining to children. Ever since she chose career over family, we've tried to include her, but she makes it so hard. Include me? The words escaped before I could stop them. You uninvited me from 8 family events in 8 months. Because you make Melissa uncomfortable, Mom snapped. She feels judged by you. I've spoken to her exactly 4 times, I said. Total. See? Melissa whimpered, still clutching her barely scratched hand. She keeps track of everything like some kind of stalker. I'm scared of her. Scared. Of me. The woman who'd never raised her voice to her. This is ridiculous, someone muttered. I think it was David. Dad stepped forward, his face red. Isabella Marie Young, you will apologize to Melissa right now, or you can consider yourself no longer part of this family. The ultimatum hung in the air like a challenge. She's always been jealous, Melissa added, sensing victory. Of Marcus, of me, of our happiness. Some people can't stand seeing others succeed. The projection was so bold I almost admired it. Apologize, Mom echoed. Do the right thing for once. I looked around the room, at my colleagues who'd watched me earn this promotion, at my parents who'd chosen a stranger over their daughter, at Melissa, smirking behind her fake tears, at Marcus, righteous in his enabling, at James Mitchell, who'd moved closer, briefcase in hand. You want me to apologize? I said slowly. Let's discuss what apologies are really owed. There's nothing to discuss, Dad said, his doctor voice, the one that brooked no argument. You've embarrassed us enough. Apologize to Melissa, and we can all move past this unfortunate incident. Unfortunate incident, I repeated. Is that what we're calling attempted sabotage now? Sabotage? Melissa's voice went shrill. I was getting a napkin. From across the room? Walking directly at me? With a full glass of wine? You're paranoid, Marcus spat. Just like you were paranoid about Melissa monitoring your social media. She comments within an hour of every post I make. Because she's trying to be supportive, Mom cried. Something you'd understand if you weren't so self-absorbed. The gaslighting was breathtaking. 30 professional witnesses, and my family was rewriting reality in real time. I need that apology, Melissa said, pressing her injured hand to her chest. For my emotional well-being. Your emotional well-being, I said flatly. Yes, being attacked at what should be a celebration, it's traumatic. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 30 pairs of eyes. My colleagues watching to see if I'd buckle. My family, certain I would. You know what else is traumatic? I asked, my voice carrying clearly. Being systematically excluded from your own family, having your achievements dismissed, watching your inheritance get redistributed to someone who's been dating your brother for less than a year. Mom gasped. Isabella, family business is private. Then perhaps, James Mitchell said, stepping forward, we should discuss this somewhere more appropriate. I believe I can help clarify some matters. My parents froze, finally noticing him. James? Dad's face went pale. What are you doing here? This is the moment where everything changes. If you've been waiting to see justice served, you're about to witness something incredible. But first, if this story resonates with you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself is always worth it. Drop a comment with a, "If your team Isabella." I see every single one, and they mean the world to me. Now, watch what happens when the family lawyer reveals what my parents forgot they signed. Hello, Robert. Linda. James Mitchell's voice was professionally neutral as he approached our group. I'm here as Isabella's guest this evening. Our family lawyer is Isabella's guest? Mom's voice cracked. That's a conflict of interest. Actually, James said calmly, I'm here in a personal capacity, though I do happen to have some documents that might be relevant to this discussion. Melissa stepped back, suddenly less interested in being center stage. Who is this? James Mitchell, he said, extending a hand she didn't take. I've been the Young family attorney for 15 years. I helped draft their estate plans. This is inappropriate, Dad blustered. Whatever Isabella has told you. Isabella hasn't told me anything that isn't already documented, James interrupted smoothly. However, given what I've just witnessed, I think it's important to remind you of certain legal agreements you signed. The room was riveted. Even the catering staff had stopped moving. We don't need to do this here, Marcus said, grabbing Melissa's arm. Come on, babe, let's go. Actually, James said, since you're named in these documents, Mr. Young, you might want to stay. Marcus froze. What documents? James opened his briefcase with practiced efficiency. 5 years ago, your parents signed a comprehensive estate plan. Isabella was present. So were you, Marcus, though you left early for a date. So? Melissa interjected, apparently unable to help herself. That's ancient history. Legal documents don't expire, Ms. Carter. Melissa Carter. Ms. Carter. These particular documents include something called an equal treatment clause. Are you familiar with that term, Robert? My father's face had gone from pale to gray. We signed a lot of papers that day. Yes, James said. You did. James pulled out a leather-bound folder, his movements deliberate and calm. This is the equal treatment clause you both signed. Would you like me to read the relevant section? This is ridiculous, Mom said weakly. We're at a party. A party where you just publicly threatened to disown your daughter, Janet observed. Several colleagues murmured agreement. James cleared his throat. The clause states, should any beneficiary be subjected to systematic exclusion, discrimination, or disinheritance based on factors unrelated to criminal activity or documented abuse, said beneficiary may invoke immediate asset protection. This protection freezes their portion of the estate and prevents any redistribution that would constitute discriminatory practice. The silence was deafening. Furthermore, James continued, the clause includes documentation requirements. Any pattern of exclusion lasting more than 6 months triggers automatic review. That's not... We didn't mean... Dad stammered. You also signed an addendum, James said, pulling out another document. It specifically states that family gatherings, celebrations, and communications must be equally inclusive to all beneficiaries unless legal restraining orders are in place. This is insane, Marcus exploded. You can't force people to invite someone to dinner. No, James agreed. But you can't systematically exclude one beneficiary for 8 months while financially supporting another who isn't even legally family, then threaten disinheritance without triggering this clause. Melissa's face had gone white. I'm not after their money. No one said you were, James replied mildly. Though the $20,000 apartment deposit and $60,000 Audi might suggest otherwise. Gasps rippled through the room. My colleagues were getting quite a show. How do you know about that? Dad demanded. Financial transfers are documented, Robert, especially ones that size. Isabella told you to ambush us, Mom accused. Isabella invoked her rights under a legal document you signed, James corrected, after 8 months of documented exclusion, witnessed threats of disinheritance, and what appears to be an attempt at public humiliation at her professional celebration. He gestured to the room full of witnesses, all of which has been rather thoroughly observed. Isabella, James said, turning to me, would you like to present your documentation? I pulled out my phone, my hands steady despite my racing heart. 8 months of text messages, starting with "Don't come to dinner, Melissa doesn't feel comfortable." I showed the screen to James, who nodded. March 15th, then April 2nd, Easter. April 28th, Sunday dinner. May 12th, Mother's Day. Those were private family decisions, Mom protested. May 30th, Memorial Day barbecue, I continued. June 15th, Dad's retirement party planning. July 4th, keeping it small. July 28th, my birthday dinner canceled for Melissa's surprise plans. You're keeping score? Marcus said disgustedly. That's sick. It's called evidence, Richard said quietly. We use it in the professional world. There's more, I said. Screenshots of Melissa's social media posts from every family event I was excluded from. 32 posts tagged family goals. 0 with me in them. That proves nothing, Melissa shrieked. It proves a pattern, James said, combined with tonight's witnessed events, including your attempted assault with the wine glass. Assault? Melissa laughed hysterically. It was an accident, which multiple witnesses saw you stage, David added. I have it on video if needed. 3 other colleagues nodded. They'd recorded it too. The birthday cancellation is particularly relevant, James noted. Canceling a child's birthday celebration for a non-family member's plans could be considered emotional abuse under the terms of the clause. Emotional abuse? Dad's voice cracked. We're her parents. Who publicly told her she's no longer part of the family, James reminded him, in front of 30 witnesses, after 8 months of documented exclusion. Based on the documented evidence, James announced, his voice carrying the weight of legal authority, Isabella is within her rights to invoke immediate asset protection. This means her inheritance, currently valued at approximately 1/3 of the estate, is frozen and protected from any redistribution. 1/3? Melissa's voice pitched high. What do you mean 1/3? The estate is to be divided equally among beneficiaries, James explained. That means Isabella, Marcus, and a portion for charitable giving as specified. Any attempt to alter this in a discriminatory manner is now legally void. We can change our will, Dad said desperately. It's our money. You can, James agreed, but not in a way that discriminates against one child based on the documented pattern of exclusion. The Equal Treatment Clause you signed prevents punitive disinheritance without cause, and making Melissa uncomfortable doesn't constitute cause. This is extortion, Marcus shouted. This is contract law, James corrected. Your parents agreed to these terms. They signed them. They had them notarized. He pulled out one more document. Isabella, as the aggrieved party, you have the right to invoke trustee review. This means an independent trustee would oversee any estate distributions to ensure compliance with the Equal Treatment Clause. She planned this whole thing, Mom cried. The party inviting you, it's all manipulation. I planned a promotion party, I said quietly. You chose to come late, dress down, and allow Melissa to attempt to humiliate me. I simply prepared for the possibility you might continue the pattern of the last 8 months. The trust fund alone is worth approximately $500,000, James continued. The real estate holdings add another $1.5 million, divided equally. Any attempt to transfer property to Marcus alone, as was apparently discussed, would trigger immediate legal action. Melissa swayed on her feet. Marcus caught her arm. Furthermore, James added, any financial gifts exceeding normal parameters, such as apartment deposits or luxury vehicles, given to one beneficiary or their partners must be matched for all beneficiaries, retroactive to the signing date. Retroactive? I asked, genuinely surprised. That means, James said with a slight smile, Your parents owe you approximately $80,000 to match what they've given Marcus and Ms. Carter in the past 8 months. The room erupted in whispers. I'll need you to sign this acknowledgement, James said, producing a single-page document. It simply confirms you're invoking your rights under the Equal Treatment Clause, effective immediately. I took the pen he offered, feeling the weight of 30 pairs of eyes on me. My hand didn't shake as I signed my name. This is effective immediately, James announced. The estate trustees will be notified Monday morning. You're destroying this family, Mom sobbed. No, I said, finally finding my voice fully. I'm protecting myself from a family that discarded me the moment someone newer and shinier came along. We didn't discard you, Dad protested. We just… Melissa needed my exclusion, I finished. And you gave it to her. For 8 months, you chose her comfort over my presence. That was your choice. This is mine. I turned to address the room, my colleagues, my real supporters. I apologize for the disruption to what should have been a professional celebration. But perhaps it's fitting that you all witnessed this. You've seen who actually supports my success and who tries to sabotage it. We're leaving, Marcus announced, pulling Melissa toward the door. This is sick. You're sick, Isabella. Marcus, James called after him. You should know that any harassment or retaliation against Isabella will be considered violation of the clause. That includes social media defamation. Melissa made a strangled sound. I'd like you all to leave now, I said to my parents. This is my celebration, and you're no longer welcome. Isabella, please, Mom started. You demanded I apologize for something I didn't do, I said calmly. You threatened to disown me in front of my colleagues. You chose your path. Now leave. Richard stepped forward. I'll escort you out. The next morning, my phone had 47 messages. I ignored them all and went for a run, breathing in the crisp morning air, feeling lighter than I had in months. When I finally checked, the family group chat was in meltdown. Marcus had written a novel-length rant about my betrayal and greed. Mom had sent 18 separate messages ranging from anger to guilt trips to pleas for reconciliation. Dad had simply written, "You've made your choice." Yes, I had. Aunt Patricia called around noon. The family is in chaos, she said. Your mother is telling everyone you ambushed them with a lawyer. They ambushed me with 8 months of exclusion, I replied. Melissa's telling people you assaulted her. Multiple videos prove otherwise, Patricia paused. Is it true she got a $60,000 car? Ask Mom and Dad. Jesus. Another pause. Good for you, Isabella. Someone needed to stand up to this nonsense. The family divided quickly. The relatives who'd noticed my absence at events sided with me. Those who bought into Melissa's victim narrative sided with them. Cousin Jennifer texted, Melissa unfriended everyone and made her profile private. Guess the influencer thing wasn't working out. The most telling response came from my grandmother, my dad's mother, who'd been in assisted living and missed most of the drama. She called me directly. I heard you finally grew a spine. About time. That girl was after money from day one. Your parents are fools. Thanks, Grandma. Come visit me. Bring that lawyer. I want to update my will too. Make sure your parents can't touch a penny if they keep acting like idiots. I laughed, the first real laugh in months. I love you, Grandma. Love you too, sweetheart. Stay strong. Monday morning at the office was surreal. Word had spread, but not in the way I'd feared. Instead of judgment, I found respect. Richard called me into his office. Friday was eventful. I'm so sorry for the disruption. Don't apologize. You handled an impossible situation with grace and intelligence, preparing legal protection while maintaining your composure. That's exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need in leadership. I wasn't sure how it would look professionally. It looked like someone who knows their worth and won't accept less. The board was impressed. David specifically said, if she can handle that with such dignity, she can handle any difficult client. Janet knocked and entered. The whole office is talking about it. You're a hero to anyone who's ever had toxic family drama. I just wanted to celebrate my promotion, I said. And you did, Richard smiled. Just with more fireworks than expected. By the way, 3 clients called this morning specifically requesting you lead their projects. Apparently, they want someone who doesn't take any bullshit. That afternoon, an enormous bouquet arrived at my desk. The card read, "Congratulations on your promotion. Sorry for missing the speech. The colleagues who matter." It was signed by everyone in the firm. Later, our biggest client, Sandra Morrison, pulled me aside at a meeting. "I heard about Friday. My daughter went through something similar with her in-laws. You did the right thing. Never apologize for demanding respect." My professional world, it turned out, understood something my family never had. Respect isn't negotiable, it's fundamental. 2 weeks later, the other shoe dropped. Marcus called at midnight, drunk and sobbing. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "She left me," he slurred. "Melissa, she fucking left me." I stayed silent. The moment she found out the money was protected, she started pulling away, said I misrepresented our family's situation. Can you believe that? Yes, I could. "She was using me," he continued, the revelation apparently just hitting him. "Using all of us. She found another guy, some tech founder, already posting photos with his family." I pulled up Instagram on my laptop while he talked. There she was, Melissa with a new man, his parents, at what looked like a yacht club. Posted 3 hours ago. "Blessed with the best. Ash family love." "Isabella, you there?" "I'm here. You were right about her." His voice broke. "I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." "Marcus. No, let me finish. Mom and Dad are devastated. She had them convinced you were the problem. We all bought it because it was easier than seeing the truth." "Which was?" "That we were being played. That we were so desperate for me to be successful at something, even if it was just dating someone pretty, that we threw you away." The admission hung between us. "I need your help," he said finally. "Mom and Dad won't talk to me. They blame me for bringing her into our lives. I have nowhere to go." "You have the guest house." "They changed the locks." I closed my eyes. "Marcus, I can't be your safety net, not anymore. Please, goodbye, Marcus." I hung up and blocked his number. 3 months passed. The legal protections held firm. My parents made no attempt to challenge the equal treatment clause. James had made it clear they'd lose. I established new rules for my life. Family contact only through email, only for necessary legal matters. No emotional manipulation, no guilt trips, no surprise visits. The money they owed me, $80,000 to match their gifts to Marcus and Melissa, was transferred without comment. I donated half to a scholarship fund for female architecture students and used the rest to start a foundation supporting people estranged from toxic families. Mom sent a letter in month 4. Not an email. An actual letter, in her perfect handwriting. "Isabella, we realize now how blind we were. Melissa played us, but we let her. We chose to believe her over you because it was easier than admitting Marcus was being manipulated. And maybe because we were always harder on you, expected more from you, because you were capable of more. That's not an excuse, it's a confession. We failed you as parents. We let an outsider convince us to abandon our daughter. We chose comfort over truth, ease over family. Dad is too proud to write, but he cries when he sees your building featured in the architectural magazines. He's collected every article. We don't expect forgiveness. We don't deserve it. But if you ever want to try rebuilding, we're here. On your terms, Mom." I read it twice, then filed it away. Maybe someday I'd be ready to respond. But not yet. Trust, once shattered, doesn't rebuild with words. It rebuilds with consistent actions over time. I focused on my chosen family instead. Janet, who'd become a true mentor. Richard, who'd promoted me again 6 months later. My team, who respected my boundaries and celebrated my successes. Even James Mitchell became a friend, meeting for coffee monthly to discuss not legal matters but life, books, the art of standing firm when the world wants you to bend. "You did the hardest thing," he told me once. "You chose yourself when everyone demanded you choose them." "It shouldn't have been hard. Family should want you to choose yourself too." "Should," he agreed, "but that's why we have contracts, for when should fails." Looking back now, I realize the wine incident was a gift. Without Melissa's public performance, I might have endured years more of quiet exclusion, gradual erasure, death by 1,000 small cuts. Instead, she forced everything into the light, in front of witnesses, On camera. Undeniable. The lesson isn't about revenge or winning, it's about preparation. Document everything. Know your rights, have backup plans, and most importantly, recognize that family isn't about blood, it's about respect. Some people will say I destroyed my family. I say my family destroyed itself the moment they chose a manipulator over their own daughter. I simply refuse to be collateral damage. Today, I'm design director at one of the city's top firms. My projects have won awards my parents will never see me receive. I spend holidays with people who actually want me there, and I sleep peacefully, knowing I stood up for myself when it mattered most. Family isn't about blood, it's about respect. And respect, as I learned that night at my promotion party, is non-negotiable. If you've made it this far, you understand. You know what it's like to be the scapegoat, the excluded one, the family member who's somehow always the problem. You're not the problem. You never were. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've made it this far, you're probably someone who understands the pain of family betrayal. Remember, you deserve respect, especially from those who claim to love you. Please subscribe if this resonated with you and comment below. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family? What was the turning point for you? Your story might help someone else find their strength. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share it with them. Until next time, remember, you are worthy of respect, always.